to Commas.
Commas is all things tech.
You see culture and technology coming together.
Life hacks.
The practicality right now and the inefficiency of the internet of buying and selling stuff is extraordinary.
Entrepreneurship advice.
I think the first thing is you got to understand your business inside out.
Love and tech.
I've almost reduced dating to kind of this very momentary snap of a person.
It's gonna be a fire show.
I have yet to see something these days that's truly differentiated.
New advice and new inspiration every show.
It really is about the next generation of creatives going faster, further than we did.
And now, Sequoia Blodgett.
Now let's start stacking them commas.
On this episode, we do a business audit with the founder of Broken Fab, giving her the steps on how to grow her business through Instagram. And I also teach you how to directly confront your entrepreneurial fears.
Entrepreneurship advice. Learn from the hottest and most successful investors, founders, and innovators in the game.
Determine your greatness.
It's time to get your knowledge up.
Okay, for sure.
My business isn't getting conversions or sales, and I've been trying super hard and nothing's happening. Does that sound like you? Then stay tuned. Hey, what's up, you guys? It's your girl Sequoia, founder and CEO of Commas, and today I am going to dive into a creative audit with you guys. What's a creative audit? Basically what I do is I will take a business, I don't care if you're in construction, real estate, tech, e-commerce, whatever, and I will go through your website and your social media channels and let you know why exactly your business isn't converting for the sales that you are expecting. So I went through earlier today and analyzed Broken Fab's website and socials with her live on IG and left her with some tools that she needs in order to get those conversions she's looking for.
When you spoke to me, you said that you basically were having issues getting your company to where you wanted it to be, right? On the creative standpoint, what did you need to do? So I pulled up all of your Instagram tabs and I have them in front of me, and I also pulled up your website. So I have that in front of me as well. So basically from your Instagram, immediately what I see, and I was with Instagram, actually, I was at the Facebook Instagram headquarters this past week, so I actually have some really good tips for you in order to like boost your growth in terms of transitioning those to sales. So I'm gonna give those to you as well. But okay, so first things first, when I look at your Instagram page, immediately what I see is Project Yonkers that comes up first, right? And is that exactly what you want to come up, or are you really trying to push this brand? Because if you're really trying to push this brand, what I would like to see first is your Broken Fab links come up first, right? And what I actually want to see from that is I want you to connect that to your actual Broken Fab Instagram page. So what you have right now is on your main page, you have Project Yonkers, Broken Fab, and then your hashtag, which is good, right? So, and she's telling me no, she wants her brand first. So we want to change that. We want to make sure that you have Broken Fab first, then your hashtags, and then Project Yonkers, because that's something that is secondary for you. So go ahead and switch that. Also, when I go to your Broken Fab page itself, what I see is trendy and timeless timepieces at affordable prices, which is a good tagline because people know very specifically what you're selling and they know, it's going to be affordable, it's going to be trendy, right? So what I want you to do though, because there's really when I look at this, because there's no brand relation, I don't understand who's behind this page. So what I would do is I would create a link and I would just say founder of, or, and link back to who you are. So at least when I come, if I'm searching through these hashtags, I actually get to see specifically, who's behind this page, because a lot of the times with brands, you don't get to know the person, right? And so we want to make sure that we know who's behind the page. So go ahead and add that to your page and let us know, okay, this is the founder, so that we can click on. So if you go to Commas, of course, you can see that I'm the founder. And then if you click on, you can see my actual personal page. So that's what we want to do next. Okay, so let's go ahead and go through this actual page. First things first, as a brand, When I click on your website, I'm gonna go ahead and click on your website. So immediately I see, and if you guys wanna go, make sure you guys click on her name so you can follow along with me and you can see what I'm talking about. You can add these tips and tricks to your actual brands, and your entrepreneurial journeys will be a little bit easier too. So that's the point of this creative audit right now. Okay, so now I'm on your actual website page. And on your actual website page, immediately what I see is these like white collared shirts. So she's at shopbrokenfab.com. So I see these white collared shirts and I'm going, okay, so are we doing some high-end retail luxury? You know, what are we doing here? And then I scroll down and then I start to see your actual clothing brand. So then I see your Boss Reflective tee, I see your Broken Fab sweater and like all that stuff, right? But your first picture doesn't tell me what the brand is about. So immediately, like going back to your initial Instagram page with your brand itself, we wanna see like that pow. We wanna see, okay, this is who she is. So a picture of you with your brand on it. Your t-shirt logo on your brand, on that front header page. We absolutely need to see that so we see who's behind the brand. We absolutely need to know what we're getting into first, right? So I would go ahead and switch that out. Secondly, when I scroll down, I start to see all of your different merchandise, right? So you have your Boss shirt on a clean white background. You have your Broken Fab shirt on a clean white background. Then you have your Gold Digger shirt on like a background where you're like in an environment, right? So what I would do is I would switch that out, put that on a white background so that you have consistency. So the main thing, you guys, when you're building out your brands is you want consistency. You want to pick maybe 3 colors. Like if you look at Commas' page right now, we're big on red, yellows, blues. We'll dip into the green sometimes, but you want to, and if we do, we'll show you that thread happening. So you want to pick those colors and you want to stay with those colors. So if you're going to have your shirts on your white background, make sure you go ahead and you switch out everything. So everything's on that white background so it stays consistent. And then what you can do if you want to create more pizzazz on your actual website is you can create your Instagram links at the bottom. And so then people can see like them in the environment. We can see your girls like in their environment, etc. One thing that you did really, really well, and I think you guys all need to take note of this, if you haven't already, is you actually have a subscribe page. Now, the importance of this is Facebook has billions of users. Instagram has billions of users. The importance of having a subscribe page is when somebody comes and they actually subscribe to your account, you then own that customer. So when Facebook algorithms change, when Instagram algorithms change, they change all the time, right? When those algorithms change, you start to lose the customer, you start to lose your customer engagement. You guys can see that from your numbers going down. You can see kind of how things will manipulate within your own platforms, right? But if you own the email address, you own the customer, then you can push out whatever content that you want to push out to those customers. So you guys make sure anytime that you have any type of brand that you're creating an email list and you're building on that list so that you then own the customer. So that's super important, and that's something I see that you have. And you have an opt-in, which is also really important. When you go to her website, immediately it'll say 15% off. If you want 15% off, go ahead and put your email address because that incentivizes the customer to actually put their email address in there. So that's really good too. So props to you on that. So let's go back to your Instagram page. So again, going back to trend, colors, themes, making sure everything is on point. So on your Broken Fab Instagram page itself, you did a good job of actually posting the content and like making sure that we see the content. But the thing that's confusing, and I know, and I'm assuming there's different products. I'm assuming maybe you have bathing suits somewhere because I'm seeing a lot of bathing suits. I'm assuming that you have that intermixed within your actual sweaters and your t-shirt line. Those are all assumptions. I'm not really sure. So that's one thing that I'd like you to clarify. Like in your actual heading, we sell fabulous shirts or swimsuit wear or whatever it is. I need to know, very specifically what that is so that I don't feel like when I'm scrolling through your Instagram that you're actually off brand. I want to make sure that everything is very succinct. She said, try to switch pages to see if I could join. Let me see if I could have her join on this other page. Let's see here. Nope, it still says you are unable to join. I don't know if it's something with your phone itself. Maybe switch it to vertical. I don't know, but I'm gonna keep going because I'm not sure what's going on tech-wise. Okay, so that is one thing that I would definitely clarify. Like, make sure people know when they're coming to your page, you know, what specifically you're selling, because right now I'm a little confused as to what that looks like. Again, going back to what I said earlier, having a theme. So you are in a world of maybe 100 million brands, right? So how do you make yourself actually stand out from that? So there's different types of themes that you can have on your Instagram account, where you can have, maybe it's a quote and then a photo. Maybe it's a tier of photos that are all the same color, and then there's an angle on those photos, or there's a different visual in terms of how people are a different perspective on how people are looking at that same shirt. Just make sure that it's consistent and it pops. So when somebody's looking at your brand, they're going, oh, snap, like this relates to me, and this is something that I'm super, excited about getting involved with, or I'm super excited about like purchasing, etc. So I would say be very consistent in the way she said she's struggling with that, which is, thank you for telling me that. So the way that you can do that with ease, because in our minds, we don't really know going into it, okay, if I post this photo, is this gonna look good next to this photo? Like, just the way that our minds work functionally, it's just not gonna work like that, right? So what I would do is I would download an app called Preview, or Later, or so it's UNUN. UNUM. And so once you download those apps, you can basically see your Instagram feed ahead of time, and you can see very specifically if these photos are gonna work next to each other. And then once you do that, then you can actually say, okay, perfect, I'm gonna post them on my page, right? So you kind of wanna curate your feed ahead of time. You don't wanna just jump in and just start, posting stuff, because it's never gonna look good together. I'm a creative, like I directed commercials and music videos, and I still can't just like post and like make it look amazing, right? So make sure that you curate your feed ahead of time and then post. So that just takes some planning. So just make sure that you're maybe setting aside time on a Sunday, Monday, whatever, and say, okay, I have these 5 photos that I want to post throughout the week, and then those are the photos that I'm gonna have, and then those photos roll out. You've already looked at them, you said, okay, they look great, and then now they're on your platform, and then you're rolling them out, all right? So cool. So I would say those are my main tips for you off bat. I know that was a mouthful. I think one of the things that you've done really well also is you've kind of integrated yourself into the brand. I would say do that a little bit more so people get to know you. People want to connect with somebody. They want to know somebody, is behind the brand that they are excited about, that they connect with, that they have, commonalities with. So put more content in terms of what, who you are. So going back to a quick recap of everything, if I can remember it off top. If not, you guys can definitely watch this live again. Making sure you put your name into your bio so people know who that is. Be very specific in terms of, she's like, bye, people, bye. That's another thing. I'm going to talk about that in 2 seconds, but be very specific in terms of like what you're actually selling, and just be clear and consistent across the board in terms of your brand. So again, you guys, this is a creative audit. If you guys want something like this for yourselves, you can click the link in the bio. So I'm going to talk about specifically telling people to buy. So that is a tricky situation, because people are going to buy things that they're absolutely excited about, right? And it takes people at least 3 points of interaction before they actually purchase from you. So they need to, one, feel like they're getting extreme value. So are they excited about your sweaters? Like, are they excited about your shirts? She said, well, no, I meant people don't just buy things, I meant people don't just buy things, they buy people. Yes. Oh, yeah, you are correct. People buy people. You are 100% correct on that. Sorry, that was a misinterpretation. But I'm going to continue this thought, because a lot of people do try to force the buy. And I want to help you guys understand like why the buy actually happens, right? So basically, when people purchase from you, again, going like back to what Broken Fab said, they are actually purchasing from the person. They want to know that they can trust the person, that they're excited about the brand, and that they can support the person, right? And even if it's a bigger brand, like for example, on Amazon and eBay or whatever, you don't necessarily know who's behind the brand, but you have such trust within the brand already that you're already starting to purchase, regardless of the fact that you don't know who, Jeff Bezos is from Amazon or whatnot, right? So that is the biggest tip for me when you're first starting out and you're building your brand. Make sure that you are absolutely connecting with your user. Make sure that you're absolutely connecting back to the brand. People know who you are, and then they're hearing your story, and then they actually are engaging with you. So that's all. I gave you guys a lot of branding tips in the beginning, but let's jump into like the actual Instagram tips, right? So again, I was at Instagram, Facebook last week at their headquarters, and there's a lot of things that they're doing in order to make sure that you guys are able to engage in your accounts, that you have sellable accounts, if you have if you're entrepreneurial and you have those type of accounts. And the main thing is that they want for you guys is engagement, right? So they want you guys to be able to jump on a live. For example, like right now I'm talking about the creative audit, right? So this is me engaging with you. So they want you guys to be able to jump on your lives. They want you guys to be able to use your IG stories. They're massive on IG stories. They're going to push to the top of the algorithm way faster than anything else that's in your feed. So they want you guys to make sure that you're doing that. They want you guys to make sure that you're also I wanted her to come into the live, but she couldn't because something's going on internally technology wise, but they want you guys to make sure that you guys are connecting with the people, right? And so they're going to create these tools. They're going to continue to create these tools to push that forward for you guys. So that's one of the tips for you, I would say. Everything that's on your page should look like a portfolio. So essentially, I should be able to go to your page and say, oh, this is her portfolio of products, right? And then your lives, your stories, your IG stories, your highlight reel, that's all behind the scenes. How's she making the clothes? I actually saw some of the content that you had on there where you had the girls in the photo shoot. That was great. So continue to post stuff like that. How's she out, selling these? Like, what's her behind the scenes projects look like? A lot of people want to know what that is, okay? So continue to do that. You're doing really well there. And yeah, I think you have a good, solid foundation and a solid base. I would say focus on high quality content as much as you can. If you want to grab somebody off Craigslist and do a photo shoot for $100, just so people are seeing your content as high quality as possible, shoot as much as you can and then use those pictures, and if you have your cell phone, you can shoot on there. If you're shooting on a clean backdrop, it's going to look better. Or if you obviously I have an iPhone XS, so if you're throwing, the background out of focus, you want to always have the focus on the product. So make sure you're doing that. And your stuff is doing good. So let me ask you, since you're obviously online and I don't want to just talk at you, what are you having the most issues with? And have I answered that already? Because if not, let's go ahead and jump into that. So again, you guys, if you're just tuning in, we are doing a creative audit with Broken Fab. That is her entrepreneurial brand that she's selling clothing line online. And what happens in these creative audits is I actually go through your products and services with you and tell you exactly what you need to do in order to improve your content, in order to improve your sales, your revenue retention, and to actually have a successful business. So right now, I'm asking her very specifically, what else is there? Because I've given her tips on how to improve the content in terms of her bio, what she needs to have on there. She said, yes, I've answered most of her questions. Perfect. So we are good then. Just to recap before I hop off, again, I've struggled with this, with conversion. Okay, good. Okay, so let's talk about your conversion. So what's happening when you convert is there's a sales funnel, right? So the top of your funnel is your intake. When you log online, and so me as a customer, if I log online, I see you and I say, oh, okay, she looks like an interesting person. Let me see what she's marketing. Let me see what her products are. And I click on your actual page. Then I'm going to see your portfolio of your products, right? So then I'm like, okay, cool. I like this Gold Digger shirt. This seems interesting. Let me go ahead and click. So the first thing that you should do is not, she said, we get the page views, but converting them to customers. Yep. Okay. We're going through that right now. So the first thing that you want to do is not necessarily have, like, if I go straight to your Broken Fab website, I just feel like you're selling me right off the bat, right? So you want to have an opt-in, right? So I saw your pop-up, but instead of a pop-up, I would have a landing page. And on that landing page, I would have, hey, 15% off, maybe a short like sentence that says who you are, what you're doing, couple sentences, who you are, what you're doing, a dope photo, like the flyest photo you have of all your products, and just an opt-in email address that says, okay, this is exactly what I want to sell or what I'm selling. And you get 15% off if you are interested in more content, if you're interested in knowing our discounts or whatever it is that your offer is, right? So that's all that's on your landing page. You don't have, your clothing on there. You don't have your price points on there. You don't, because that's giving people an opportunity to actually tune out immediately, right? So if you go to commastheseries.com, you're going to see our first thing. We have a sizzle, like a trailer on there. And then immediately we have a sign in for our newsletter, right? So that's the top of your sales funnel. So once you have the sign in for your newsletter, you grab the customer. Then you want to nurture that lead. What you don't want to do is like start hitting them with like, oh, here, buy this, right? So going back to the point of adding value, and people buy from people that they like. So nurture that lead, send them a newsletter maybe once a week, every Thursday, so they can expect it. That's when we do ours, every Thursday. So every Thursday, so they can expect that, and then say, hey, whatever that value is, like, hey, you trying to start a brand, and leave them with some value, and continue to do that, nurture that lead, and then create a link at the bottom that links back to your actual, your website. So then people, if they want to purchase, and then thematically going back to the fact that your brand is an inspirational brand. You're talking about Gold Digger. You're talking about like, you're not a bitch, you're a boss. Like all these things, like on your shirts, all this messaging that actually has some inspiration behind it. So maybe that's what actually goes into your newsletter. Like, how do you become a boss? Like top 3 tips to become a boss. Like how to set your goals for the week. Things like that are going to be interesting to your audience, because those are the people that you're trying to attract. So that's what you want to put into those newsletters, and then give those people, an opportunity to then explore on their own. And then as they're feeling this community, as you're building up this community, then you're going to be like, okay, hey, we have products and services if you're interested, that you can also tap into. So that's what I would do. I would make sure that you're building a community, because there's tons of t-shirt lines, there's tons of sweaters, there's tons of, all these things. Gold Digger, I've seen it. It's not an original concept. So how do you make it original to yourself, your audience, and your community? And that's what you want to focus on. So I think that's probably your missing link when it comes to your funnel. And ultimately, you're going to have, a couple people who are going to come in. It's going to feel like, oh, there's not a lot of people in this community. But as you start to grow, you'll see that the community grows itself. One of the things that they talked about that I totally champion, and we do this with Commas, when I was at Facebook last week, is Facebook groups, right? Because you're giving your community an opportunity to talk to each other. Maybe you do goal setting Mondays, and then they can set their goals together. Maybe it's like inspirational Wednesdays, and they can talk about what inspires them, right? So you're using Facebook groups to do that. Obviously you can't do that on Instagram because there's no group function, but Facebook groups, that's exactly what that was created for. So that's something that you want to do as well. So then they can start to talk to each other. And then ultimately what you will start to see is that they're going to start purchasing just because they support this community. Not necessarily because they're like, oh, I want this sweater. It's because there actually is a community behind it, and people are excited about you, your products, your brand, and like the messaging that comes with it. So that is the missing link to me in terms of why you probably are not converting into sales, because the originality is lacking. And as soon as you can fine tune that and like wrap that into one, then you will be good to go.
So if you want a business audit, drop us a link to your company on the Commas Instagram page @commas.club, and you may just hear your feedback on the next episode.
Yo.
Love, life, and tech.
With Sequoia Blodgett.
Just part of our culture.
Because balance is real between the swipe culture, mental health, personal growth, career, and just about everything in between.
Just keeping it real.
It's a lifestyle.
Incredible vibes, incredible people.
Love,
Life.
and tech.
When you're fearful, it is literally one of the worst times to make decisions, because you're going to make a decision out of scarcity and not having enough information. So what you want to do is you want to breathe through it. I know this sounds real woo-woo, but trust me on this. You want to breathe through it, and you want to think through it. And once you do that, you want to communicate with whatever or whoever it is that is causing this fear. Communication can totally, although sometimes very difficult, can totally curb that fear for you, right? So do not make a decision based out of fear. Be very patient with yourself. Communicate with whoever is involved in the picture. So if this is an entrepreneurial thing and you want to jump and start a company, make sure that you're communicating with yourself. If you have a spouse, communicating with your spouse, communicating with any of the parties that are involved. If this is a work thing and you want to leave your company, or you want a raise, or you want to transition, or whatever that is, communicate with your boss, communicate with your peers at work to get feedback on it. Make sure you're constantly communicating, because basically when you're fearful, you're just making stuff up in your head. Right? You're making stuff up that you believe to be true, even though that might not be the case whatsoever, but you've put truth to it. And you've given it a perspective that you feel like is in alignment with your truth, right? But that doesn't necessarily mean that it's in alignment with everybody else's truth. And you obviously have more information about the situation because it's your fear that you're going through. So maybe having a conversation and communicating with the parties involved will give you more information and a different perspective in order to make a valid, solid decision. Right? And be patient with the people involved as well, because a lot of the times when things arise and we're fearful about something happening and other people are involved, it's not about us. And we think it is. We're like, well, maybe they didn't like us if it comes to like you getting a new job, or maybe they felt this way or that way. And you've made up your own story in your own head. I mean, how many times have we done that? I can count on my hand thousands of times, probably going around in circles, counting on my hand how many times I have made up a story in my head that is absolutely not the truth whatsoever, right? So what I'm learning to do, and what I've learned to do over time, is be patient with the people involved and be patient with yourself, and really just give the situation time and breath for the reality to come to fruition, right? And within that process, do your work. Make the decisions that you need to make. Be actionable about what you need to do. Make sure you're doing your work, and then the other parties will put in whatever that is, whatever information you need to know when you reach out and have those conversations. So many things to digest. Fear is literally the number one reason why we don't realize our dreams, because we've created a story in our minds that is absolutely not true. And so we make it true, though. And that's the problem, is we tell ourselves, this is the truth. This is exactly what's happening. This person feels a certain way. Whatever it is, just be respectful, be patient, and be kind to yourself throughout this process. So let's paint this picture for a minute. Your hands are sweaty. Your heart is pounding because you are panicked due to the fact that something was supposed to happen that didn't happen. You had a certain amount of money lined up for the next couple of months, and then something didn't happen. 4 months down the line, a huge opportunity has presented itself. which you know will happen 4 months down the line, or at least you have an idea about the fact that it's going to happen 4 months down the line. And so now you have these 4 months to wait. You were waiting on this money. It was supposed to come and it didn't come. So what do? Fear strikes and you panic, and you go and you apply for job after job after job after job. Meanwhile, you have this amazing situation that could transpire into an amazing situation 4 months down the line, but you really aren't sure about it anymore. Now you start to doubt the situation. You start to doubt your current situation, and you're like, I just need certainty. And that's what happens when fear strikes, is you start looking for absolute, utter certainty, and at the expense of everything else. So instead of making informed decisions, instead of making thoughtful decisions, you're making decisions out of scarcity, and you're making decisions out of panic and decisions that are not rational. So how do you deal with that? You have a conversation with the person involved or the people involved in the situation that may present itself or may not present itself 4 months from now, so that you know how to make informed decisions going forward. So now you know that if you take another job, then that could cancel out your opportunity 4 months from now, right? You've had this conversation with them. They say, hey, it's still on the table. Don't move, right? So you're sacrificing the fact that decision may change the trajectory of your life, right? But at least you have more information. The problem with these scenarios are often we make decisions without knowing all of the information. So instead of having the conversation, we come to a conclusion that offer must be off the table because you haven't heard anything else about it, and that you need to find a job right away, right now, because that money didn't come through. And that's the information that you know in that moment, right? So now you're sitting and you're doing something and you've applied to 20 jobs and you're like, whew, that weight's lifted off my shoulder. And lo and behold, you didn't have the conversation with the person 4 months from now. They text you and they're like, hey, the offer's still on the table. What do you want to do? Do you want to come and explore the opportunity? And you're like, oh, because now you've applied to 20 other companies. The universe doesn't know what to do because you've sent 50 different signals as to what needs to happen. And so now you're off base, right? Because you've made a decision out of pure chaotic panic. So what could you have done differently? Had the conversation with the person 4 months from now, so you know, at least have more information. Obviously, you don't want to wait on an opportunity and then things go awry. So have that conversation and then start to activate. Then start applying for different jobs if it's looking like that's not going to pan out, right? That's a very clear-cut picture of what happens when fear steps in versus abundance versus opportunity versus love, right? Because fear and love are oppositions. So if you're holding space for yourself, if you're practicing patience, if you're practicing focus, determination, and really just self-care and really communication, if you're practicing all these things, you have more information and you have more facts. If you're not practicing these things, it's likely that you're going to make a decision out of scarcity, which is not going to be the right decision. It may feel like the right decision at the time because in your mind, in your heart, in your soul, you solved the problem, so you don't feel the anxiety around it anymore. But who knows what would have happened if you were patient and waited for that 4 months, for that amazing, exclusive, exhilarating, all the adjectives, opportunity, right? You don't know what would have transpired. we've got to make informed decisions. We've got to understand all the cards that are on the table, and we've got to be realistic and look at the bigger picture and not just one slice of the pie. And once we do that, we'll have a very clear idea of what needs to happen versus making an uninformed decision. So now all of the cards are on the table. The person's come back to you. What looked like an extremely exhilarating, amazing idea isn't quite what you thought it would be. So how's that for a plot twist? And now you have to go back and reassess, right? At least you were able to do that with everything shown. At least you did not jump to conclusions before you actually had the information. And I think that's the biggest takeaway here is make a decision. You have to make a decision. You have to have actionable steps toward whatever that fear is planting in you, but make it with information. Make sure everybody has inputted the information necessary that's involved in the process, and then decide what you want to do with that information. But do not jump to conclusions and do not create expectations that are unrealistic, right? Have those conversations. And this is relevant not just to business. This is relevant in relationships, partnerships, mentorships, friendships, whatever ship it is, it's relevant across the board. So have the conversations, the hard conversations, communicate, be transparent, be vulnerable, and then and only then should you be making your decisions. When it comes to entrepreneurship, we all encounter fears, and sometimes we deal with it by projecting. Sometimes we deal with it by not moving at all. And needless to say, it doesn't allow us to be productive. So think about it as an entrepreneur. When you're going through the process of building a company, we tend to project these storylines, and we build out these storylines, and we decide before the matter even happens what the conclusion of the story is, especially for all of us who are creatives and visual people. We tend to create these stories in our heads, which prevent us from actually taking action. So a simple story with me, I'll be going through a process and I need to enact something within the company, or I need to make a decision, right? And instead of actually making that decision, I'll ruminate over it over and over and over again to the point where nothing actually gets done because I've been thinking about it for so long. So I'm going through the process of thinking through this, and nothing is transpiring. And I've already come to a conclusion, which that conclusion isn't really actually reality, if that makes sense. So that's the thing that I want to bring to your attention when it comes to fear, is a lot of the times it doesn't serve us. We create these stories, we act on these stories, and the truth of the matter is the stories aren't even real. So as an entrepreneur, how do you navigate around fear? So I'm going to talk a little bit about that. So let's start with understanding fear and where it's coming from. So when we procrastinate, 9 times out of 10, that procrastination is based off of some form of fear. And we don't tackle it, and we, like I said, we continue to think about it, and it goes on and on and on and on. So one of the things that you can actually ask yourself is, what exactly am I afraid of? So asking that out loud to yourself and really understanding very thoroughly what that is, and then writing it down and seeing it on paper and seeing it outside of your mind. Because I don't know about you guys, I'm a very visual person. And if I can see it on paper, it brings a different kind of perspective to it versus in my mind, because I will create some wild story that just is not relevant to anything, right? So I would definitely say make sure you're writing it down and actually seeing it. And then asking yourself who specifically you're afraid of. So not only what are you afraid of, but who is it that you're afraid of? So are you afraid of hurting someone's feelings by making a decision? Are you afraid of your parents, friends? Like, who exactly is in this picture that is causing this fear, right? And once you have that concrete idea, ask yourself, is it a story that you're making up, or is it something that actually happened in the past and you're projecting the reality today? So is it actually a realistic expectation, or is it something that you are actually creating, right? So once you know those things, you have a completely different perspective and a completely different way of dealing with it. In addition to that, work out the worst case scenario. So you know what the fear is, you know where the fear is coming from, you know what you're afraid of, you know who you're afraid of. So with all that combined, what is the worst case scenario that could happen? So work that out in your mind and write that down on paper. Make sure you can visualize and clearly see that so that you know specifically what this trigger is about. After you do that, write out the best case scenario. So what happens if you never encounter that person? What happens if what you projected isn't actually what happens, but there's an extreme to that side that's actually a better resolution? What does that look like? So write that down on paper so that you can see that as well. The reality of it is it's neither going to lean here nor there. Like, it won't ever get to the worst case scenario, or at least we hope. And it won't really ever get to the best case scenario because those are two very strong extremes. More than likely, it's going to land somewhere in the middle. So if you can deal with what that reality is, then you have a more realistic grasp on what it is that you're actually fearing. And to be honest, you may have been projecting such an extreme on the worst case scenario that once you even see what the reality is, you're going to be like, what was I tripping off of, right? Once you've gotten it all out of your head and on paper, so now you know what you're afraid of, you know who you're afraid of, you know what the best case scenario is, you know what the worst case scenario could potentially be, you know that it should get you somewhere in the middle of the two. How do you address that fear head on? So what exactly do you need to do? And from my perspective, you need to take action. In order to know what the reality of the situation is, in order to know what the results from you taking action are going to be, you need to take that action. So now, whatever it is, if it means that you want to start a company, if it means you want to switch out of your company that you're currently at, whatever that means to you, then you need to decide and you need to take action. You also need to come to the conclusion of, if you never take action, is it worth the risk of not taking action, right? So what happens if you never do what it is that you're trying to do, right? And you stay put and you don't experience whatever it is that you're fearing? What happens then? What does that look like for you? Because I'm encouraging you, I am championing you to take that action. So what exactly are those next steps? So write that down on a piece of paper. I need to do A, B, and C in order to tackle this fear, right? And make those small, digestible milestones, because anytime your brain feels like there's too much going on, you're going to feel overwhelmed and you're not going to want to do it at all. So how do you make those small, digestible milestones that you can tackle? So what does A look like? Maybe if you're starting a company, maybe you want to just start to test the market. You want to go survey your audience and start to understand if the market is actually excited about your product or service. If you have done that, maybe B is then you put out a minimum viable product, which means a very scaled back version of what you would put out to market. A landing page is enough to make that a reality, right? So test the market, see if it's a viable product, put out a landing page, see if you can get signups, and then maybe C is, will they pay for it? Will your customers pay for it, right? So you can even ask them, is this a price point that you would pay for? Is this something that you would pay for after you've tested the market, right? So now you've actually created actionable steps to move yourself forward out of that fear and to create momentum. And once you get into momentum, there is no turning back because you are jogging forward, right? So that is my advice when you get stuck and you have fear and you don't want to move forward. You have to overcome that fear, because if you don't, you're stuck. Being stuck, to me, is way worse than actually taking action and seeing what the results of that action is. I personally get to the point where I will ruminate over something over and over and over and over again. I am the worst at overthinking something. I will think it to death, right? But eventually, when it becomes painful enough, eventually when I'm like, enough is enough, eventually when that pain point kicks in and it is piercing through my spirit, then I'm like, all right, like, let's go. And then I become like the momentum dragon that I just can't. I'm just like, pchoom, and I'm basically unstoppable, right? But that takes some time to get to that point. And when I get to that point, that means I have hit my wall. That means I have basically gotten to the point where enough is enough for me, and it's time to take action. And that action comes with a lot of energy, because I've been holding all that energy in, right? What does that look like for you? When you hit that wall, does it look like immense amounts of energy? Does that look like hesitation? What does that look like for you? Because whatever that is, if it is hesitation, you want to convert that energy into momentum where you can just take off and just start to take some type of action. So that is how you want to address any type of fears that you're going through.
This is The Plug.
You know who's the plug.
It's time to get caught up on the hottest in tech.
Keep it locked, you heard?
With Sequoia Blodgett.
I see you, little mama.
So what is Commas, you ask? We are an entrepreneurship community that helps you get support on your journey to financial freedom. So Commas is a community of like-minded startup entrepreneurs with the goal of being profitable. We focus on helping founders gain an understanding of how to build online, digital, and tech-enabled businesses through courses, coaching, and support. So throughout that process, what we'll do is we take you through a 4-month program, and you'll learn different courses that have focus points in entrepreneurial mindset, product development, branding, marketing, sales, publicity, fundraising, basically every single touch point of your business. And not only that, you're going to understand business formation, because you can know all of that stuff, but if you don't have a legitimate business, then you're stopping in your tracks, right? We have a one-on-one session with amazing coaches that span everywhere from mental health to legal, brand, and finance. Not to mention, you're also going to have group coaching and a mastermind where you're going to collaborate with your fellow peers and get feedback on your business as well. So we're an all-inclusive community to make sure that you're getting your company moving from point A to point B. And we also have live events. Our previous event was done in partnership with Gary Vaynerchuk and Draper. So, we get it popping over here. So if you guys are interested in learning more about the Commas Club, log on to www.commasclub.com.